So this is the Highway Groupie's world-famous tuna omelet. So we start off with a couple of eggs. It could be white eggs, brown eggs, whichever you prefer. Everyone has their preference on that. We start with 2. You always put the eggs in first, because you never know when you run into a rotten egg and you don't want to throw it on top of ingredients that you've already prepared. So these ones are fine, so that's good. Just wash a little bit of egg albumin off my hands here. And we'll set that aside and start on the next ingredients. So we have our 2 eggs. And next we're going to prepare our tomato. Now I prefer an Italian tomato. You can cut it either crosswise or lengthwise, whichever you prefer. Today I'm going crosswise. And you notice that the Highway Groupie always uses a very sharp knife. It's much easier to work with, less likely to cut yourself. And so now we take the tomato, and I made about slices that are a little less than half a centimeter. That's a little more than 1/8 of an inch. Going one way, do the same thing going the other direction. Now, since this is an Italian tomato, it's going to wind up with these long cubes. So I cut them into shorter pieces, because that's basically what we want. We don't want a finely chopped tomato, but we don't want these great big pieces either. And you notice that when I scrape the tomato into the recipe, I always use the back of the knife. Never use the front of your knife when cleaning off the board. Okay, so next we're going to take a Spanish onion or red onion. You can also use white onion. And this one, we'll take the skin off here. And the skin off here. And I just noticed that there's a little bit of an extra skin in one of these inner rings, so I'm going to take that out. We don't want onion paper in our omelet. So there we go. And we finely chop the onion. Mind your fingers. What I do is I always angle the knife just slightly away from my fingers. And I always tuck my fingers or curl the ends of my fingers under a little bit. That way they're protected. Because as I mentioned, this is a very sharp knife. You come down on one of those fingers and you are definitely going to trim a nail where you didn't want to. Okay, once you've chopped it one way, I just give a little slice the other way or chop the other way to get rid of the long pieces that were from the curved ends. Again, use the back of the knife and put this into our omelet. Now, how much tomato, how much onion? Well, that depends on you. Depends on your taste. And this is according to my taste. Now, this is homemade yogurt, no sugar added. And I'm going to take a very large teaspoon, maybe a large teaspoon and a half. Again, it's up to your taste. Sometimes I'll add just a little bit of wine vinegar or cider vinegar too. That makes it a little fluffier. But this is good too, just with the yogurt. Now what I have left here is about a half can of tuna left over from another recipe. And what we're going to do is we're going to take it and turn it into small pieces. Now if you start with chopped tuna, it is not going to taste well because you have the head and brain and other stuff in it. Whereas this is flaked tuna, and then I just break the flaked tuna into small pieces. And whatever brand you choose is up to you. So we get all that in there. I prefer my tuna in oil. If you have it in water, that's fine too. And a little bit of pepper, just a small amount. Now some people like to add paprika and a bit of garlic powder, which is fine too. And this is herb amara. It's not what it says on the label. I like to keep my herb amara in small containers so that it doesn't cake up on me. So there's a bit of herb amara in there. That's sea salt with, and we'll mix it up here. Sea salt with fine herbs from the sea to give us the iodine that we need. So we'll give this a nice whipping up here. You whip it with the with your fork. Okay, get it nice and homogeneous, just the way you like it. Okay, now let's talk about the pan. You're going to see me drop a little bit of water in this pan. We've been preheating it. You notice how the water just sort of disappears. It stays in the same spot. I'll do it again. It just sort of boils away the same. This pan is not hot enough, and that's always a problem. You notice how here the water dances around? So we've cut away to this, and now the pan is hot enough. If your pan is not hot enough, your eggs are going to stick. Anything you put on a pan that is not hot enough will stick. So even if you add butter, doesn't matter. So now I'm putting some butter in here. If you don't want butter, make sure that you have a really good non-stick pan. And again, it has to be hot enough to start with. You can always turn it down once you start, but it has to be really hot when you first start out. So the butter I put in is strictly for flavor and texture. Now I'm adding the mixture, as you can see here. Fits into about a 9-inch fry pan. Get the last little drop of egg there. Put that in the sink. And we cover this. And turn the temperature down to low. Now we can see that time lapse a little bit. We're just checking to see how liquidy the top is. And it's still a little bit too much liquidy here. So we're going to let it cook for just a little bit longer. Okay, now it's about the way that we want it. You don't want anything kind of liquidy. It doesn't matter if it's a little soft, but liquidy you don't want. Okay, so we take off our lid and we check it. It's sticking just a little wee bit, and I flip best left-handed, so I'm going to switch over to my left hand here. Use the right hand with the spatula, and just going to take away from the edges. Poke it a little bit there, but you're going to just free up the edges there. And here we go, flip over, and that's it. So we flipped it over, nice and brown. Now it's looking a little darker on the camera than in reality. It's not quite as dark as this, really. Almost looks burned on the camera, but it's not. It's just a little darker than gold brown. It's my wife likes hers a little more like golden brown, and that's fine too. So all we're going to do now is just milk a little bit of the heat out of the fry pan. As I mentioned before, there are other ingredients you may want to put in. You can add green pepper. That's always very nice in this, or red pepper. Some people prefer that. I don't. My wife loves green pepper in it. There are other things that you can add too. I mentioned paprika already. Onion powder or granulated onion. Granulated garlic is also nice in here as well. So there are several ingredients that you could put in that we didn't put in, but everything is to your taste. It's whatever you want to put in it to make it taste better. I will even sometimes add a bit of cheese and rice with this, which is also very nice. So now it's heated enough on the other side. We slide it off onto our plate and get that last little bit that I broke off when I was flipping it. And there we go. Now you'll see that I'm serving this with my homemade ketchup. I'll post a recipe for that later. Also some artificial bacon bits made with soya protein. Also give you that recipe later. Some rice cakes and a Beck's beer, which is a very dry Pilsner. Usually hypoglycemics can get away with that. So there is your tuna omelet. Enjoy!